Χαμηλώστε παρακαλώ τα κινητά σας τηλέφωνα. Σήμερα έχουμε την τιμή να είναι μαζί μας μια αντιπροσωπεία από το Βελγικό Κοινοβούλιο, από το Φλαμανδικό Εθνικό Κόμμα. Ήδη μίλησαν στη Βουλή, ήδη έχει γίνει ένας χαμός, μας είπαν, έχουν σπάσει τα τηλέφωνα της ΣΕΡΤ, παίρνουν από το ΠΑΣΟΚ, από το ΣΥΡΙΖΑ, τη Νέα Δημοκρατία. Τους λένε γιατί βάλατε εθνικιστές από την Ευρώπη να μιλήσουν μέσα στο Κοινοβούλιο, και αυτό είναι σημαντικό βεβαίως. Και θα καλέσω στο βήμα για να μας μιλήσει για το ζήτημα της λαθρομετανάστευσης και της Ισλαμοποίησης τον κύριο Φίλιπ Ντε Βίντερ, βουλευτή του Φλαμανδικού Εθνικού Μετώπου.
Dear friends, first of all, I would like to thank my good friend Ilias for showing us around in the islands of Chios and Lesbos. I was very moved by your hospitality and by the Greek hospitality on those islands. And I have to tell you, a few months ago, I was shocked reading an article in a Belgian newspaper about the prosecution, not of your party for once, but the prosecution of the bishop of the island Chios, Marcos Vasilazis. And the Greek government pressed charges against him because he dared to say that the thousands of people who recently arrived from Turkey on the island of Chios are illegal immigrants and not refugees. And the left-wing Greek government of Syriza tries to stigmatize the bishop as a racist, but they can and will not scare, I think, the angry majority of the Greek people. And I think that Bishop Marcos spoke the truth. The large majority of the people arriving in Greece, but also in Europe, are coming from, as we know, from Africa, from the Middle East, and they are no refugees but illegal aliens. And it's sad that the government of Greece, that the government of the nation that gave birth to democracy, wants to abolish the freedom of speech. And 2 days ago, I visited, together with my colleagues, and I have the possibility to present them to you, the charming senator, Vice President of the Belgian Senate, and also member of the Belgian Parliament, and President of Women Against Islamization. She was only a few years ago Miss Belgium and runner-up for Miss Universe, Anke van der Meer. Now, I know you have a lot of colonels and generals in your ranks. We have a lot of misses. It's another attitude, but we like it that way. My good friend next to her, who is a member of the Flemish Parliament and who is the President of the Commission of Foreign Affairs in the Flemish Parliament. He was, when he was young and beautiful, now he's only beautiful but not young anymore. He was one of the leading members of the VMO, and the President told me that he knew this movement. The VMO was the militia. It was the militia, Vlaams militanten, or the Flemish militia, order of militias, in our country, and he's also our leader in the city of Mechelen. And then next to him sits my good friend Jan Penris. He is a lawyer, just like Ms. van der Meers is a lawyer, many lawyers in our party. And he was one of the student leaders of the National Student Organization in our country. He's for many years the president of our Antwerp section of Vlaams Belang, and was always my right and left hand in Antwerp and in Parliament. He's for many years already also a member of Belgian Parliament, and he was the president of the Commission of Social Housing and Internal Affairs in the Parliament. His name is Jan Penris. And as I told you 2 days ago, I visited together with my colleagues the beautiful islands of Lesbos and Chios. And the so-called hotspot, who are in fact camps full of immigrants, we have some experience with it in the city of Calais, who is a Flemish city. It's in France, but it's only a few kilometers from our borders, and we have a lot of problems with them. We have the same sort of illegal camp with 5,000 to 6,000 of them. We visited only a few months ago the camp of Calais, and it's very similar to the things we have seen in Lesbos and in Kos. These camps are, I think, a very ugly ulcer on the beautiful face of these historical Greek islands. And these hotspots are, in fact, as we call it, garbage dumps of multicultural Europe. And I live in Antwerp and work in Brussels, the capital of Europe. I'm not proud of it, because Europe stands as a symbol for the European policy towards immigration and asylum, and is the main reason for the problems you have over here on the Greek islands and also on the mainland. And I'm not only speaking about immigrants and illegal aliens, but also about the financial problems here in Greek. Brussels is the symbol of all the problems you have. And in that city, we already have whole neighborhoods who are in Muslim hands. You certainly heard about Molenbeek, the European capital of Islamic State. When that is Molenbeek, where the IS terrorists who bombed Paris and afterwards also the airport of Brussels lived and organized their terrorist attacks. Brussels is becoming a sort of huge Islamic Kasbah, where Islam is not only gaining but is also becoming the major religion of the majority of the people. And we, well, most of us live in Antwerp. That's the second biggest country, the second biggest city of our country, the second largest port of Europe. There we see that about 52 to 53% of the pupils of the primary schools in my city are Islam believers, are Muslims, and that 25% of the total population are Muslims. In the city of Antwerp, we have 53 mosques. That's more mosques than there are churches now. And that makes Antwerp as the most, not the most southern city of the Netherlands, but the most northern city of Islam. And best friends, if we want to stop the Islamization of cities like Brussels and Antwerp, Greek islands, and many other cities in Europe, we have to do it by stopping the mass immigration towards Europe. And the border and front states of Europe are our outposts, the immigration battlefield, as I call it. That's why we are here. And we want to express our solidarity to the Greek people. And I was very pleased that I could do it also on national television tonight, in the symbolic place of the Greek Parliament, who is the heart of our European democracy and our European civilization. And we stand with the Greek people because we fight the same struggle, the struggle for the future of our children and our grandchildren. And I know that the Greek government is afraid of the opinion of the Greek people, is afraid of those who express the opinion of the Greek people, is afraid of parties like ours. And when the public does not agree with the policy of the political correct elite, the political establishment prefers to blame the people for ignorance, for racism, and for fascism. When the voters persist in retaining their views against mass immigration, Islamization, and multiculturalism, the political elite simply replaces the people. Now, what is happening in Greece and in much of Europe is the replacement of its population, its values, and its way of life. And most of the mainstream political parties and governments in Europe obey to the self-destructive EU policies on immigration that will cause the end of our Hellenic, Roman, Christian, European civilization. Left-wing political parties like Syriza don't care about the protection of the nation, its identity, or the safety of its citizens. They are the real enemies of Europe, not we. And I think it's our responsibility to organize the people's revolution. We have to stand up against our oppressors. And we do it on a democratic way, by the way, of democracy in parliament, in city councils, in local governments, and so on. And we have to kick out the corrupt, xenophile, and oikophobic governments who are left-wing liberals and who are destroying our nations and our identities. We also have to kick out the occupation army of Muslim immigrants who are colonizing Europe for Islam. Because also in Greece and also in my country, 70 or 80% of the so-called refugees are in fact illegal immigrants coming from hundreds of different third world countries. And those fake refugees, let's call them fake refugees, and the criminal refugees, let's call them felon and rape refugees, have to be expelled without any delay. And what is an occupation army? And you have some experience with it here in Greece, with the Turkish occupation, with the Islam occupation. What is an occupation army doing when invading a country? It propagandizes its beliefs and uses force to have their way of life imposed to the civil society. And that's exactly what is happening in Greece and in Europe. The guests are taking over the house. Indeed, the Muslim guests are taking over our European house. And the Greek people have already been crushed by Islam, by the 20th century genocide, and the more recent Turkish occupation of Cyprus. And for me, it's unbelievable that the European Union still accepts the fact that a large part of Cyprus, that is a Greek island, is occupied by Islam, by the Turkish authorities and the Turkish army. I think it should be impossible to have any talks, any way of relationship with Turkey as long as they occupy a part of Cyprus. And therefore, dear friends, it's time to fight back. I'm convinced that the EU migration deal with Turkey will collapse, and that the number of immigrants will once again increase dramatically on the Greek islands, in Greece, and afterwards also over in our countries. And the EU proposal to spread the refugees all over Europe is a crazy proposal. The EU policy on immigration is an incentive for human traffickers, and simply tells to those third world people, yes, try to cross the Mediterranean border at all costs. And I'm truly convinced that the Islamic refugees are the stormtroopers of Erdogan invading Greece and Europe. Let us be clear, Turkey can and will never be a member of the European Union. Turkey does not belong to Europe, not yesterday, not today, and certainly not tomorrow. Dear friends, the open border policy of left-wing governments like the Greek government and also my government and the EU Council is a part of a larger plan. It's a plan for Europe to become a multicultural and multi-ethnical, a multiracial society. Left-wing parties want to abolish. They want to abolish the Christian, white and Western identity of Europe. And European liberals want to install a sort of global citizenship and a one-world culture in Europe. If we want to find a solution for the immigration invasion of our countries, we have to put our own national interests above the notions of so-called European Union solidarity. And what we need, I want to conclude, what we need is a severe immigration policy. We have to close our borders for non-European refugees and illegal immigrants. We have to refuse Muslim immigrants the entrance to Europe. Islam has no place in Greece nor in Europe. We have to organize pushbacks for all immigrant refugees like is already done and proven to be successful in a country like Australia. We can do the same over here in Greece, in Italy, and on the shores of Europe to push back the vessels and ships and boats of those non-European refugees coming towards Europe. We have to prepare also the organization of the deportation of all immigrants towards their countries of origin, all immigrants who don't want to assimilate to our way of life. And as final conclusion, we have to prepare the de-Islamization of our European society and the re-migration of the Muslim immigrants who don't want to assimilate into our European society towards their countries of origin. Dear friends, the last days we were victorious all over the world. I don't say that the ideas of the new President of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump, are our ideas. But when it comes to immigration, when it comes to closing the borders for illegals, when it comes to the deportation of illegal immigrants, when it comes to refusing the entrance to Muslim immigrants to America, we stand with Trump, and I think that Trump also stands with us. We are living at this moment a sort of patriotic spring in Europe, and the left-wing liberals are becoming a minority in Europe. The time of the Donald Tusks and the Junckers and all the other left-wing guys who run Europe for too long are over. They are history. The future is ours. The future is to the Trumps and to the Putins and to the Orbans of this world. And I know that Europe has a lot of civil rights. We have the right of freedom of speech, although we have the right of freedom of religion. We have the right of equality between men and women, the separation of the state and the church. We have democracy. Those immigrants who don't agree and who want to impose their Islamic way of life, their beliefs upon us, have also one important right. And that's the right to go back where they came from. They are free to leave Europe at any time if they don't feel at home here. And therefore, dear friends, we are going to take back our country. We are going to give Greek back to the Greeks, Europe to the Europeans. We are going to drain the swamp of immigration, and we will make also Europe great again. Prota o Elinos. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Τη γερουσιαστή και όπως είπε και ο προηγούμενος ομιλητής, Miss Βέλγιο, κυρία Άνκε Βάντερ Μέρς, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is indeed Anke van der Meers, and I was first elected as a Belgian senator in 2003, and I have been re-elected ever since. I am also a city councillor in my hometown Antwerp, where Philip de Winter talked about, and member of the Flemish Parliament for the political party Vlaams Belang. I am in Greece on a fact-finding mission concerning immigration and refugees policy here in Greece during the European refugee crisis. I have visited Chios, the 5th largest island of Greece, where I visited a facility constructed with the help of the United Nations. And I've also visited Lesbos, where almost half of the migrants that have entered Europe have arrived. I have noticed that in most of the camps, the refugees that are coming into Europe are from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, and mostly they are Muslim men. And if there are children amongst them refugees, they are mostly boys. After seeing the consequences of the refugee crisis here in Greece and its islands, it is a pleasure for me to be able to speak here before you in Greece, in Athens, the birthplace of democracy. It is exactly that democracy that I want to discuss with you in view of what I see happening here in the refugee camps at the borders of Europe. Democracy is ruled by laws and not ruled by people. Today, this is exactly the problem we face with our current European democracies. Rules, and in particular immigration rules, are violated by migrants. Foreign people overrule us and our rules of laws are ignored. And that is not good. It is not good for our people, the people of Europe. It is not good for the Greek. It is not good for us further on in Europe, in Belgium, for example. The well-being of a people can be measured by the position of women and the welfare of the children. And unfortunately, we women in Europe are not doing very well. The Islamization of Europe goes fast, and it was speeded up by the refugee crisis. As a president of the organization Women Against Islamization, I fight already for many years against the Islamization, because women and children are always the first victims of Islam. Islam is entirely in contradiction with the common human rights. The Sharia, that is the Islamic law, denies especially women personal free choice. It imposes inequality of sexes, and it exhibits absolute intolerance against dissidents, and it promotes inhuman punishments. Females are systematically discriminated and oppressed and even molested. With respect of the treatment of women, Islam is synonymous to humiliation and discrimination. Due to the inflow, the massive inflow and continuous inflow of non-Western immigrants and asylum seekers, as well as the Islamization of Europe, new kinds of criminal facts were also imported. Along with the Islam, savage practices such as honor killings, forced marriage, polygamy, and female genital mutilation are introduced in our societies. These criminal acts are happening here in Greece, they are happening in Belgium where I live, they are happening all over Europe since the importation, the mass immigration. These criminal acts, which we didn't know, are important as well. In addition to those criminal acts of Muslims toward women, we women in Europe also suffer from harassment when just walking in the street or swimming in a public swimming pool. With the tsunami of Muslim asylum seekers, we experience now foremost the typical jihad rape culture. You have seen a big example of it during New Year's Eve, the festivities in Cologne, Germany. And this insecurity of girls and women in our society increases exponentially. My organization, Women Against Islamization, is mainly active on the new media, such as the internet, Twitter, and Facebook. We are a collective of European resilient women who oppose the left-wing immigration policies and the Islamization of Europe that comes along with it. We make talked about campaigns and actions to spread our warnings and messages and also our solutions. Our Burkini poster, for example, which you can find on the internet, on the website of my organization also, on which you see a lady wearing a bikini and a burqa at the same time, went viral around the globe. Another successful poster of my organization is the legs poster. We used to call it by the name of the shoes, but this is prohibited as I was condemned in court not to wear actually the shoes ever again, which I ignore and I wear them anyway. Well, that leg poster has different gradations on the leg. The different gradations of Islamization are shown. Of course, the poster, because it's prohibited, went also viral around the globe, and it is still very successful on the internet where court cases and judges do not have grip on it. Of course, resilient as we are, we also printed the new version of the poster with the yellow shoe soles, so the owner, the fabricated of the shoes cannot oppose anymore. So we are a group of women with actually a wide range of training and occupations. When something nauseates us, we come in action. Our actions differ from demonstrations to silent vigils, from dangerous stunts to dress a statue with a burqa, of which you also see on the internet many pictures, to hugging of animals, to protests, for example, against the barbarism, halal slaughters, for interviews in glossy magazines, or it comes up to parliamentary work. I am by training a lawyer, and legislation is my kind of thing. And I'm very proud to say to you today that I am actually the architect of the European's burqa ban. In 2000, thank you. In 2004, when I was 1 year elected as senator, I wrote and introduced the burqa ban law in the Belgian Senate, which later on served as the basis for all other burqa bans and all other burqa ban laws in other European countries, and I'm actually very proud of this achievement. All the work, which was already done by my organization, Women Against Islamizations, makes me proud. And as you can see, we did make already a lot of campaigns showing beautiful images, and we made very clear what we are warning about and helping women into politics, into political parties, so we can act and put the right emphasis into the political programs of political parties. In the area of internet, images are very important, but we also try to spread our message on a profounder way, with lots of arguments, and it's of course in written text. This, one of those texts is the one I wrote, and I made a book of it, Neither Whore Nor Slave, Women and Islam. My book provides not only information about the influences of Islam on the lives of women in Europe, but after each theoretical chapter that I describe in the book, I have also made interviews with ordinary women, mothers and daughters from different walks of life. And in those interviews, these women talk about their life and how it was already marked by the Islam and the Islamization. In the book, I warn that the Islamization of our European society will go on furthermore, and I give those examples of those normal women who talk about the Islam, who talk about the effect it has already on their daily life, and they also know and warn people that this cannot go on any longer. Dear friends, it is time to stop the renunciation of our own identity, time to stop capitulating to multiculturalism. We need to wake up and pay attention and take action to defend the foundations which made what we are today and on which we built a world empire, our heritage of ancient Greece, Christianity, humanism and enlightenment. It is possible to turn the tide, and there is hope. Not only in the USA, but also in France, Germany, Holland, England, Italy, Hungary, and other European countries. Right-wing patriotic parties, like my party, Vlaams Belang, are very successful in the elections. Now it is time to turn the path of a strong, self-confident, identitarian Europe. It is a great task, and it is actually a historical challenge which our generation is both challenged with but also privileged to rise to meet. It is the crusade of our times, to which we must dedicate our lives, following the example of so many of the best of our ancestors. Awareness, militancy, and clarity of purpose are the keys for winning this fight for the future of Europe, for the future of our children.
Thank you, we thank you a lot, because your presence in the Greek Parliament makes the enemy, all the system, to be very frightened tonight. Because they can understand that in all over Europe, from Greece to Belgium, the national parties, the national powers are rising up. Ο εχθρός, το σύστημα, έχει φοβηθεί, γιατί και με τη σημερινή παρουσία των Βέλγων βουλευτών στην Ελληνική Βουλή βλέπει πως σε όλη την Ευρώπη, από την Ελλάδα μέχρι το Βέλγιο, οι εθνικές δυνάμεις, τα εθνικά κόμματα γίνονται κάθε μέρα όλο και πιο ισχυρά. Σας ευχαριστούμε πολύ. We thank you a lot.